Okay. All right, so somebody needs to mute him or her theirself, and I can't see who right now. Welcome. Please introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from and what brought you here today. And you can add, if you want to, you can add your pronouns to the screen name, but you don't need to add your neighborhood council to the screen name because I think, well, you can, but just know that Lorraine and Muriel might be changing some of that information for our voters. But yeah, if you can add your information to the screen name, that also helps everybody get to know each other. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience across the city through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. We have a range of active committees and working groups, and this is their schedule. And you'll hear from some of these, some of the chairs of some of these committees at the end of the meeting about what we're up to most recently. And tonight, yeah.
I hate to interrupt. I think, does anybody else see just a portion of the screen and not the whole?
Oh,
It seems zoomed in, maybe.
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. I forgot to do something. Thank you so much for saying that. I forgot. Oh wait, I don't know what I did wrong, actually. It should be, so you weren't, what were you seeing?
A quarter of the.
It was just a part of it.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, I don't know
It was enlarged too much. I think it was like at 200% or something, so we could only see a fraction.
Oh, thank you so much for interrupting. I don't know if I can fix that. That I don't think has happened to me before, but let me try again.
Do you see the 58%? You see at the bottom tab? You might want to put that at. No, I think that's right. I don't know.
Well, this is, you know what, I won't enlarge it. I mean, I won't put it into presentation mode just for the sake of expediency, although we might run into this. Oops, this is the wrong presentation now. Let me get out of that one. Okay, I'll just leave it like this for now, just so we don't have to deal with that. Okay, these are these are committees and working groups, which you couldn't see all of before. Our housekeeping items are, we are recording, and you can, we're going to be a small informal group, so feel free to chime in whenever, as Glenn just did, and use the raise hand feature to participate. But please do mute yourselves for now, because some people have some background noise. And we have some community agreements that we'll show you in a moment. And we also will put a link to the evaluation in the agenda, in the chat, and we would love for you to complete that, because we really do love to hear what you like and what you don't like about these meetings, because we want you to like them. This is our agenda for tonight. We're going to have a fun conversation about low waste holidays. And I should say happy holidays, everybody. And then we're going to talk about the proposed LA Zoo expansion. And we'll also talk about the Mulholland Scenic Parkway specific plan. We'll talk again about our NCSA bylaws. I really hope that in the near future, we will never have to say that. And we'll have announcements from everybody. And then once again, do the evaluations. And our community agreements are pretty simple. If you can, have your camera on so that we can see your face and continue to build community, even though Zoom makes it a little tough. Assume good intent, give people the benefit of the doubt. That's one of the overriding principles of the NCSA that I really like. It's not always easy to do, but it sure makes communication more pleasant. And along those lines, demonstrate respect and appreciation. Please, by all means, use the chat. The chat is great, but try not to be too tangential in the chat. Like, let's stay on topic. Please listen intently and step forward and step back, participate, and also let others do the same. Be as concise as possible, and of course, have fun. Okay. Now I would like to hand it over to, first let me introduce our board members. I see, I think we have the ones who are going to join us. I should tell you guys, Scott is on hiatus. Scott is still a board member, but he is running for city council, some of you guys might know. And as you might know, that is really, really, really demanding. So he is stepping back from his board roles for the time being. But Muriel, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the steering board members in the NCSA, formerly of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and I am the current chair of the Transportation Committee.
Thank you. And Lorraine, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Lorraine Lundquist. I'm a board member. I live in Northridge and happy to be here.
Thank you. And Dawn, please introduce yourself.
Okay, hi. Sorry, the glitch there. I'm Don Dwiggins with the NCSA board and late of the Northridge East Neighborhood Council, recently retired from that.
Great, thank you. And Ernie told me he has a conflict, so I think he's not here. But if you are here, Ernie, just scream or something. Okay, and I'm Lisa. I sometimes forget to say I'm Lisa and I'm on the board. And I live in Silver Lake, and I used to chair the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Green Committee. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Kelley Dennings. She is with the Center for Biological Diversity, and she is out there in the, what do you call it, in cyberspace, promoting the concept of a lower waste holiday season, which I thought was really timely, obviously. When I think about the holidays, you know, when all of us think about the holidays, we probably think about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of travel, a lot of consumption, a lot of food, a lot of lights, a lot of presents, a lot of decorations. We could go on and on and on. And all that is in many ways for us very wonderful and very fun, but there are, you know, there's the other side of the coin, right? So Kelley's going to talk a little bit about her perspective on the waste piece. And, you know, as always, we are a pretty informal group, and I would love to hear everybody's ideas on this topic, either in the chat or just raise your hand, because what I'd like for us to be able to walk away from this evening is people really feeling like they have some new ideas or some new inspirations about how to have more sustainable holidays and how to communicate this information to our constituents in our neighborhood council areas. Okay, Kelley, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'll just probably interrupt you or allow other people to interrupt you as we proceed.
All right, wonderful. So you're able to see my screen, hopefully.
Yep, it looks great.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Kelley Dennings. My pronouns are she and her. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the invitation to speak with you. A little bit of background about me. I spent 15 years working in waste, forestry, and conservation before getting a master's in public health. And my position at the center is to develop and execute campaigns focused on rights-based solutions, from voluntary family planning to the solidarity economy, to address how the effects of population pressure and consumption impact our environment. I want to acknowledge that I'm on stolen Choctaw land, where many individuals face displacement and suffering, and hope one day they receive restorative measures. And for those that are unable to see me today, I'm a petite, or also known as short, white, middle-aged woman with long brown hair standing in my living room. So just to warn you, I already kind of planned some interaction with this presentation. So you may want to multitask, but I'm also going to be stopping periodically to ask you to write in the chat. So, all right. So just for a quick introduction of the center, we're a national nonprofit conservation organization that works through a combination of science, the law, organizing, and creative media to protect wildlife and the wild places they need to thrive. So on the screen, you're seeing all of our different programs, and you may be familiar with us. We have a couple of different offices in California. I'm actually currently in the central time zone. So,
Katie, do you want to hear the presentation from Wildlife Center for?
we might
Probably no more than
mute that. Who's
Yeah,
ever-
sorry, I'm texting somebody who can't get in, but I'll mute that person if I can find, try to mute everybody except, and then I'll invite you to unmute yourself, I think is what I'll do.
Okay.
You can see if you like it, and if not, walk away.
Okay, can you unmute yourself, Kelly? Thank you.
I can, yes. Okay, so why are we here today to talk about simplifying the holidays? Well, the United States is 5% of the world's population, but uses 30% of all resources, creates 30% of all waste, and emits 15% of the world's carbon emissions. The average American has an environmental footprint 60% larger than most Europeans and nearly 700% larger than the average person in most African countries, which is what this graph is depicting on the slide. You're probably familiar with this graph from the EPA, or maybe one even more specific to your community, but food and plastics are the big categories on this chart. And we know that about 40% of all food waste is thrown away, and we generate a lot of that during the holidays. And for plastics, we know that about 40% of plastic produced is packaging, which is used just once and then also discarded. So again, lots of work to do on these two commodities in particular, but everything else in the chart here also. So this is a kind of hot off the presses. So there was a statistic that's been around for about 20 years about waste generation during the holidays. That's about how long I've been doing this work. And I just wasn't sure if it was accurate anymore. So this summer we aggregated trash, recycling, yard waste, and food waste data from local governments across the country for the 2018 and 2019 calendar years. And so what we have found with our analysis is that Americans are generating 23% more tons of waste in December than other months of the year. So we've created a number of additional shareable statistics like the one you're seeing here on the screen, and I'll talk a little bit later about how you can use those, download those from our website and share them with your community or neighborhood. So the center also published a report in 2020 based off around 1,000 national survey responses, and through that survey, we learned that 3 out of 4 people in the United States thinks the average American consumes too many natural resources. So there's a pretty great knowledge about this and awareness. In that same survey, we asked people about their current behaviors and their willingness to change their behavior. 67% are currently reducing their personal consumption, or self-reported. 82% are willing to do this, but 31% need more information. So the center really is hoping to close that gap, but it isn't that cut and dry. So before kind of at the early stages of this call tonight, we were talking a little bit about supply chain. So the combination of workers sick with COVID, lack of shipping containers, labor shortages, and the natural disasters caused by climate change are contributing to the thinking that traditional material gifts are going to be hard to find this year. So depicted on the screen is a graphic from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality that shows how global supply chains can be problematic. And really the common denominator is transportation. So along each of this cycle, we're moving material around or moving products around. So experts predict that this holiday shopping season is going to be affected by those supply chain issues, and even buying new environmentally friendly gifts may be difficult, like bikes, electric vehicles, energy efficient appliances, durable clothes are going to be hard to find. So according to this survey, I found this just last week, it's very new. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, consumers will spend an average of $1,400 on gifts, travel, and entertainment during the 2021 holiday season. And this is a 13% increase from pre-pandemic 2019 holiday season spending. The majority of holiday shoppers said that they're going to favor companies with strong environmental, social, and governance business practices. And that number jumps to 86% for millennials. And 56% said they're going to buy more from local and independent stores. So that's good. Lisa asked me to talk a little bit about transportation, and this survey actually had some transportation data. So their data revealed that roughly a third of the population traveled during the holidays, mostly to visit family and friends. And that held true even last year when holiday travelers swapped air travel for road trips using personal vehicles. This year, however, more than half of the survey respondents said they're going to travel, and 72% will travel by car. I happen to be one of them. So the supply chain issues may jumpstart some systemic alterations to how we produce and consume goods that last beyond the holiday season. We need to look for new business models that shift to closed material loops, things like extended producer responsibility or the solidarity economy. And I'm sure I don't need to tell this group that waste systems built around reuse, refill, repair, borrowing, sharing, and then finally recycling and composting can create great local jobs, resilient and equitable communities. So for the center, this is a both end situation. Not only do we need systems level changes, but at the individual level, we need to instill societal norms that nourish connection, community, sustainability, and health with this kind of diverse and equitable lens. So I hope to share some thoughts with you tonight about the campaigns that you're seeing on the screen. But right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that talking about consuming less isn't necessarily an equitable request. So I like to talk about this in relationship to conscious consumption. But that only works when there's corporate transparency. So let me describe it a little bit more. Some people do need to consume less. Some people need to consume differently. And some folks, even in the United States, need to consume more. And maybe that's in relationship to food, clothing, or shelter, but that could even be things that bring people joy. So what I want to instill today, though, is that once someone's immediate physical needs are met, perhaps additional material things don't always bring happiness and well-being. So take some time during this webinar to visit these websites, multitask in that way while I talk with you, but I'm going to go over some of the different resources that are on them. All right, so this is one of those times when I'm going to ask you to type in the chat. So how do you feel about the winter holidays? What emotion comes up first for you when you think about Christmas or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving or the New Year? I will give you a few seconds to type that in. A little bit of a variety here in our answers. I see warmth, happy, connection, but then I also see annoyed, fraught, overwhelming. But I see family, lots of family, but wasteful. Yeah. It can be a double-edged sword for sure. Thank you all for participating in that. So when people talk about what they love about the holidays, they usually do describe spending time with family and friends, eating good food, having fun, and relaxing. So it's time to celebrate the holidays wrapped in more meaning and less stuff. So our Simplify the Holidays website will provide you with various tools and resources to create a low waste holiday tradition in your home and information you can share with others, be that your community members or students, employees, or other coalition partners. So I'm gonna drop this in the chat. Like I said, feel free to peruse the website. But what you'll find on the website are some alternative gift guides, information about creating earth-friendly traditions, simpler entertaining ideas, and deep dives into various holiday seasons. So the one we've started with the most, because that's what people think of, are these winter holidays. But a little bit here on the gift guides. So this is one of the main things that people come to the website for. So they lead you to multiple Pinterest pages with all sorts of creative ideas. And as I mentioned at the beginning, because when we talk about these supply chain issues, we really hope that you take the opportunity to support local businesses, those owned by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or your local reuse organizations to help build this just circular economy. So I will dive into these alternative gifts ideas for a second here. So on the Pinterest page, you'll find our DIY or handmade gift ideas, like creating a photo album, knitting a cozy scarf, or supporting local artists. On the screen, you're going to be seeing examples from my colleague, Sarah. She's made homemade dryer lint balls. She's repurposed a desk that she found on the side of the road. And she made her sister a t-shirt quilt from old t-shirts. So I will fully admit this category is not for everyone. As you see, there are no examples from me up here. So that's not really my forte. So another category is quality time or skill sharing. And so you might be offering to babysit, dog walk, or helping a young person write their first resume. But this is an often overlooked alternative gift, but research shows that the gift of time is extremely valuable to people. So you may want to think about this holiday season. All right. So also on our site, through the Pinterest gift guides, you'll learn about charitable gift giving. So think about making a donation to a favorite nonprofit in honor of your loved ones. On the screen, you're seeing an analysis we conducted between giving a plush toy to someone versus visiting a nonprofit wildlife center. So most plush toys are made from polyester, leaving a pretty large carbon footprint. But round-trip drive to visit a wildlife center creates less CO2 than a stuffed toy, and it supports the nonprofit organization. So next one is experiential gifts. So I just want to come out and say it does not have to be the big quintessential Disney trip. This is what most people think of, and that's probably not a good example being in California, but give the gift of a museum or national park membership, cooking or art classes, or plan a special day being a tourist in your own city. On the screen, you're seeing another analysis we conducted between giving, again, a sports jersey, so a material gift, versus taking a tour of the stadium. And again, this experiential gift still creates less carbon dioxide than the jersey. And these are all shareables on our website, so you're welcome to use these in the work you do. Finally, edible gifts include cookies, someone's favorite comfort food, or maybe that special bottle of organic wine. The graphic I'm sharing is another analysis we conducted between giving a steak dinner versus a plant-based dinner. So far and away, you know, plant-based meals emit much less CO2 than a steak dinner, and it's also better for you. I see a hand up. Do you want me to take it?
Sure.
Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, just quickly, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I didn't know when the hand ups were going to be answered. So my head almost exploded when I saw the cow and steak dinner. But I thank you for, you know, trying to reinforce the plant-based option. And I hope, because this is sustainability, that we would really be trying to help educate folks away from, you know, animals and agricultural choices, because as you know, that is, you know, really causing a lot of severe climate issues and the long-term effects and the footprint, like you mentioned. So I'm hoping that we are able to integrate that a little bit more and kind of gear in on that, so folks know that there are so many other options, and that would make a difference tremendously. Thank you.
Yeah. We have a whole program that works on plant-based foods. So
Wonderful.
check that out. All right. So another website we have is our So Kind registry and wish list service. So I'm going to put that in the chat here. So this fully customizable site allows you to request gifts that are truly meaningful to you. So as you can see on the screen, you can pick from those categories I shared earlier as part of the gift guides, along with secondhand gifts. So since this site was created in 2013, over 15,000 alternative gifts have been given. So this slide that you're seeing is a wish list I made. So this would be what you would share with your friends and family when they ask, what do you want for Christmas? This is my mother-in-law's. She asks it very early in the year too. So just like a wedding registry, you can pick and choose the item you want. No money is going to exchange hands on this site though. So if you want an experience, the requester needs to provide a link to where to purchase it. So for example, if you want a museum's annual pass, you need to provide a link to your on your registry to the website that they would go to buy that for you. So on the site, you can also build a give list. So this is essentially a reverse registry function that allows you to let people know what skills, hobbies, or things you're willing to share with others. So with both a request and give function, you can kind of see how this is similar to Free Cycle or the Buy Nothing groups, but it's really geared towards gift giving. So the other sites are often also very hyper local, but for this, you don't really necessarily need to be living near each other. All right. So I just want to end by sharing a personal story, of course, while also acknowledging the privilege that I hold. So for me, I have a family that loves to shop. In fact, my mom and dad met at Macy's in New York. They worked together. So I grew up in retail. I was helping to dress mannequins and stocking shelves as a child. And one of the pictures you're seeing here is me in a Christmas store. So my dad even ran a Christmas store for a year. So asking my family to not buy gifts was a real shift. Well, in 2019, I created an online wish list and I shared it with my family, and my mother did great, giving me an experiential gift despite all the barriers of not living near each other. So it really shows if one is motivated enough and has the right tools, it can be done. It's a picture of me with my niece here and my mother-in-law, and compare that to the one when I was a kid. There is just a lot less waste. And I am really proud of that. I think we're doing really great to instill things in my niece that are slightly different. So while we need additional policy that would make it easier to consume consciously through durable and repairable goods via corporate transparency, or policy to build a circular economy that supports sharing, borrowing, and reuse, and to require companies be accountable for the ultimate disposal of their products and packaging, individuals do have a role to play. So make a pledge this afternoon or tonight to give one or more alternative gifts this holiday season. So social science shows that you're more likely to follow through on that promise if you make it public. So if you want, you can type in the chat, I pledge to give one or more experiential or alternative gifts. So feel free to do that if you want. So on this slide, you're seeing some links that might be useful, both of the websites that I already shared. But I'll also dump in here the social media, the short URL to the social media shareables. And then we're always looking for kind of testimonials or advice. So if you've given an alternative gift, you could share that with us, and then we'll put it on the website or share it with our social media. So I will share that here in the chat. And yeah. And then just kind of open it up for discussion. And that was the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kelly. That was fantastic. Yeah, I would really love to hear from people what you have done, what you think is realistic, if this involves a big culture shift for you, or if you're already doing this, or if you think it's just not going to fly in your family or any of that stuff. And any suggestions you have for how we can do this more sustainably. Rosalind.
Yeah, thank you. So I really love the presentation. Thank you. And I've been doing alternative gifts for years and my family loves them. And I think the only issue is getting some more uptake with my family because there's still a very seems to be a very powerful cultural push with this idea of if it's not new, it has lesser value somehow if in terms of physical goods. So getting past that has been a challenge. But I just had two questions. One is, I'm just looking at some notes that I have, is regarding, since this is a group of neighborhood council representatives and we're very involved in our communities, I know that a lot of us are engaged with things like charity drives, toy drives, and something that I find really challenging is that there's this huge emphasis on stuff that is brand new, still wrapped, all of that. And there's this deep taboo against reuse. And I think it's going to be even worse because of COVID fears, which I think are without merit in terms of just reuse stuff. But so I wanted to know if that's something that the center has had thoughts about in terms of larger community giving and charitable giving. And then the second question is about the relationship we have with our local businesses in our communities, and how do we, so many businesses are still reliant on selling new products that were shipped from places all over the world. It's totally unsustainable, but we want to support our local businesses. Are there ways that you see for developing a relationship with our local businesses that could lead to supporting more sustainable giving?
Yeah, thank you. Those are great. On the toy drive and reuse, I totally hear you on that. And my thesis was on experiential gift giving, and it was pretty hard to do experiential gift giving during COVID also. And so we were getting that question a lot last year. As it relates to a physical thing and the safety, as you said, it really isn't a concern of transmitting COVID. And we're having the same issues, whether it be, a reusable mug and your cutlery and bags. So I'm in another coalition working on that. And I just have to say, reuse even before that was difficult, much less, with the fear of COVID. And we've not done as much on reuse as I'd like. That's kind of something that I have for next year. So as you'll see, secondhand isn't part of the gift guide yet. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer. The gift lists might be a way to be able to do that on SoKind, that you could offer up, like new types of toys and things that you have, and maybe share them not through the typical Toys for Tots, but some other method that people would be willing to take, slightly used, things like that. On the local business, so I used to work in a local government in North Carolina, and I was really active in my chamber because we were trying to get businesses to recycle. And so I'm trying to kind of build that up on the reuse side of things for like third-party sanitation systems, so that, people don't always have to bring their own blank. And so I would just kind of maybe recommend working with your chamber, and maybe there's a way to give a presentation about, is there a way to source these things, more locally, or shop through kind of like, I'm thinking farmers markets and local artists markets that are traditionally a little bit more. But I hear you, a lot of folks are still purchasing things, even if you're going to the local, mom and pop store, they're probably still buying things from China and overseas. But it's going to be a tough year for people that are doing that, though. I think we're going to see a shift. I really do. So.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Christine, because Heather, I'm going to put you a little bit towards the end just to make sure we can get to everybody.
Oh, thank you. I don't have a whole lot to say. I just, first, I love this. Thank you very much. And I really came into it thinking like I already know about a low waste holiday, but I learned a lot of new things. And I just want to put out there, one of the things that we try to do is because we do a lot of native plants at our house and are involved in that. You know, there's a whole big thing in the native plant community to do a native plant wreath. And, but like, one of the things that I see is so much waste is like every store that has these wreaths that have traveled so many miles, and they often have like plastic berries and plastic hollies. Like I wonder if there's a way to get a tradition like that out of just the kind of native plant community and into a wider sort of city effort, or just something that embraces it and really makes it seem like a tradition, you know, and just rethinking like what our Christmas should look like in California, right? Like and with a changing climate. So anyway,
it's similar to I was asked last year about, you know, the quintessential live tree or, you know, plastic tree. And so we did an analysis, and that's on the website if you go there. But, you know, live trees are better if they could be planted afterwards. You know, you still kind of have the root ball, all that kind of thing. And they're oftentimes also sprayed with pesticides. And so, yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we could get people, one, out in nature, like foraging for their own garland and things like that. But I know that's not realistic for everyone. But yeah, it's tough. Tough to change these norms and habits.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I'm multitasking. Dylan.
So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing myself as a manufacturer. And I go to China every year and I work with my factories. And this is a very complicated question. So, or overall scenario. I will roll it back to something I wanted to say earlier though. 100% yes, shop with people of color, Indigenous, and women. You didn't mention women. Women are still highly marginalized in the entrepreneurial space in general, and including consumer products. Unless you happen to make a female-driven consumer product like a beauty product or lingerie, you're probably buying from a man. So that's certainly an advantage. You know, it's a very complicated scenario because I'm an environmentalist. I've been vegan for 12 years. Lisa knows I drive an EV. I adopted my kids. I'm very anti, you know, we don't need more. So I'm pro adoption. I hire men who have been incarcerated and are post-released. I mean, so, you know, regrettably, consumption is what allows me to do so much good in so many other areas, right? At the same time, I'm not unaware that there are containers sitting in the port of Los Angeles. We are not bringing a container over this year. We are attempting to circumvent that. But yes, there are, what we were talking about earlier, there is so much massive damage to moving goods around the world. You know, and we have a product which thankfully, it's ceramic. Well, we make a couple of different things, but at the core, we use non-virgin materials. We use ceramic. So I'm already a little bit better, but of course that also drives our prices up. And everyone, right? You've all been hearing in the economy. I mean, we're all going to face a massive inflation right now because the raw material costs are going up around the world. The cost of labor is going up around the world. There is scarcity because we've been in lockdown. So, you know, I am pro-business because small business, right? Because it is how many people feed their families, right? And it contributes to our tax base, which allows us to do more things in our cities. So even when you were saying shop local, you're right. I mean, a lot of times the shop local, they are still bringing goods in from the rest of the world, Europe, Africa, Asia. So there's still, you know, migratory damage that occurs in transporting. So all that's something that I've wrestled with, and I'm only throwing it out there for us to spitball and figure out if there are other big solutions. I would love to hear them. And then I will also say two more quick things. So I live in East Hollywood. I live in a primarily Latin area. We all know that for every holiday of the year, pop-up vendors show up, and that is how they survive. And they're selling Valentine's Day wrapped in plastic. They're selling bears wrapped in plastic. And it, drives me crazy, but I'm also pro-human. And I know that this is how they're keeping their families fed, because there are not other work alternatives for them, or they like the flexibility of being an entrepreneur, a micro entrepreneur. So that's something else to think about. It is very class driven, this ability to be able to say, don't consume or do consume. And the very last thing I'll say is my grandson, through my foster son, he's half Mexican, and they live in South LA. They are not wealthy folks. And Christmas is their most joy, like giving gifts is how they show love. And so I'm not being negative. I'm just saying, like, let's talk, like trying to create a sea change in consumer behavior. I mean, again, one of my mugs, we make these little mugs with feet. It showed up when in one of my posts, one of the men I mentor, he was on probation, and his girlfriend brought it because it made him smile. It made him happy. And that mug is now sitting by their TV, which is sort of like the altar in the home, right? Because it makes him happy all the time. So, again, it's sort of a luxury space to be in, to say we're going to give an experience, when for a lot of people, goods are how they show love, and goods hold memories for them. And so asking them to not, but look, I wish everybody stopped and I did something different. And if I lost my job because people stopped buying that would be okay with me. But it's, so all of those, I'll finalize, just conclude, like, I'm open to hear, like, these are the things I've observed manufacturing for over a decade.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate you saying that. I think this is such a complicated thing, because we have attributed so much meaning to new things and to things. And so that is that's just such a part of, I don't know if it's humans. I don't think it's unique to this culture. And I think it is tough to change. Glenn.
Yes, for neighborhood councils, we get template wording about where to recycle your live, now dead Christmas trees. That's only the tip of the iceberg, obviously, of the environmental problem. And what would be really great is if, through either Sustainability Alliance or the Center for Biological Diversity, if we could have template wording that we can post on our social media, as well as a graphic. And I know you had several graphics there. That'd be great to choose from, because getting our webmaster, most of us don't have the bandwidth for preparing the content, but if we can get it posted and we can get it out to thousands and thousands of people. So just a suggestion how to amplify this message. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for putting the focus back on neighborhood councils, Glenn. I know Kelley did share a lot that is shareable. So I don't know, Kelley, do you have any thoughts regarding that exactly? Or should we just be poking around and finding good stuff?
I put my social media shareables link back in the chat again. So there's graphics there, and some, none of it would be specific to your community. You'd have to kind of tweak that, but it may work just to get people thinking alternatively.
Right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to try to wrap things up. So I'll try to get to all the raised hands, and then try to move on to the LA Zoo conversation. Let me go to, was it Gwen or Ji Young? I'm sorry, I don't even know. Let's go with Ji Young.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to grapple with the fact that people are not going to have to work 8 hours a day, and there just isn't going to be enough work. That includes, that includes like selling stuff, and how are we going to grapple with that in the future when many things are automated and there really isn't enough work to go around? And that's where I think you know, universal basic income comes in. You know, but these are very large issues that are not appropriate for this moment. But
can I respond really quickly, because I totally agree. And I would recommend looking at the solidarity economy if you're not familiar with that. And so we're dipping our toes in that. And we had a webinar in August on it if you wanted to watch it. But I was also thinking about, there's going to need to be a just transition for all these people currently working in retail, you know, and where are they going to go if, you know, if it becomes even more Amazon-like. And so I think we need to adjust retail transition the same way we need to, you know, adjust energy transition. But thank you.
Okay, wow, that's huge. Okay, thank you, Gwen.
To the question about used items, I actually went to an estate sale about a week and a half ago. It was in the middle of the week, and I just strolled in without thinking about anything, and I have a pretty good eye. There were two pictures on the wall, and I knew that they were authentic Japanese woodblock prints. And I took them down and got them for $10 each. Then I did find out that these particular woodblock prints, I could tell that they were old. They're beautiful, gorgeous. The frame was very nice and everything. It's a little outdated. The back of it, you could see, is the old paper that it was sealed in. And it turns out that yes, it's post-war Japan, and each one is worth $1,200. So, you know, when you talk about value of things, it's all in the eye of the beholder. It's also what you think would compel it. That's a gift for somebody who really appreciates that. And it's an antique that you would find in a store that you may not be able to acquire on your own. So there are gifts out there that are treasures, and for the right person, you've got something that is extraordinary. I mean, I'll even show it to you guys on the screen in a minute, but it's in regards to making it presentable for somebody who's afraid, you know, it's not plastic wrapped and everything. I got to tell you that I used to work in a place where I shrink wrap things. You know, I sealed it in and put the shrink wrap on, and it's an antique, and there you go. That's it. So, but people pay big dollars for things that are discoveries. I've found things on the street that were mint, perfect condition, and would have cost me thousands of dollars to buy. And people discard things that are absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Thank you. Okay, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl. I'm new to this group. I think I'm going to be regifting a bunch of scarves this holiday season. Just kidding. Perhaps, maybe I should. No, my question is twofold. First of all, you didn't really talk about thrift stores and purchasing used items through thrift stores. I assume that's part of your campaign to kind of reduce waste.
It is. So the majority of what the website focuses on is actually non-material gifts. So it would be time.
So you don't promote like buying used items or repurposing?
I mean, we would promote that. It's coming in the subsequent year. We didn't get it up this year, but we would promote that before we would promote like an environmentally friendly product. So there's lots of websites that do that, and we don't do that.
Okay. And then I had another question. Have you thought about starting with a different holiday? This seems like a gargantuan one. Like, I don't know, start with like Easter and reducing the plastic egg consumption. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
We're kind of going in the opposite direction. We're going in the opposite direction, I would say. We actually inherited this campaign from an organization called the Center for a New American Dream, who has been around for 25 years, but during COVID,
just seems like such a large thing to start with. Like you might want to start with like a tinier little baby step. And then the last thing is, you haven't really mentioned, but maybe this is part of the whole thrift store thing. I just recently in the last 6 months joined this Buy Nothing group. I live near Laurel Canyon. By the way, I didn't really introduce where I am on the west side of Hollywood. And mostly to give away stuff because we're clearing out spaces in our house, and it's been very successful. I can't believe the amount of things that I've been able to give away, including my collection of tin cans, you know, from like opening up big, somebody took them. So anyway, does that factor into this, or again, you're into services?
Yeah, no, I mean, it factors in. I have a much longer presentation and it would have been mentioned, but because it's not a big portion of our website at this point, I did not.
Okay, I would totally recommend that to people who want to find items. And I too am frustrated with trying to donate items. I don't even buy my clothes new. So when I go to donate clothes to various organizations, they're like, oh, it must be new. And I'm like, wrong person, because I try and buy everything secondhand or, you know, at used clothing stores or whatnot. So, all right, well, thank you for this information, and I'll take the rest of my comments off the air.
Thank you. Chris.
Hi, Lisa. Yeah, just a kind of in the first slide, I think that Kelley showed just in terms of December, it just reminds me, like in San Francisco, you have trash, you have recycling, you have compost. Here in LA, we still don't have a designated compost bin that should be, you know, every week. So I think somebody mentioned it, Glenn, I think said something about the Christmas trees, and you see Christmas trees on the street for weeks, like weeks, you know, you'll see a Christmas tree in like February. And so I don't know how that gets, you know, movement, but that should be an easy thing to do for the city. LA is a huge city. There should be a compost for everybody. We waste so much food, unfortunately. And then of course, Christmas tree, just because Christmas is coming up. Yeah, I just want to put that out there, and if anybody had any ideas, like we should try to really make that happen this year or 2022. That's all.
I think the trees go to a green place. I think they still generate a lot of waste, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, Heather, and then maybe Mindy.
I was just going to say that this is really fantastic. Alternative gifts, and you know, people finding just really so many interesting ways of being creative. And I think that we're already doing this because, you know, a lot of people are already so aware that, you know, we want to try to minimize waste as much as possible. So I think there's been so much of that trend of do it yourself and creative ways. And I think so many of us too are so, you know, tied into, you know, supporting products and also maybe creating some of our own of things that don't have chemicals, that are all natural and organic. And for me, for example, I have a very small nonprofit for animals, but we also do a lot of education. And so my gifts over the years, I've noticed recently, in recent years, have been ways that I can sort of introduce to folks healthier ways to eat. So I make, for all of my neighbors, my community, my attorney, are vegan chocolate truffles. So just things that I already do that I can sort of, you know, sneak into people I know that are not plant-based, like my attorney certainly is not. And he always says to me, God, are you sure? Are you sure there's no sugar? So I think just, you know, people can just kind of take that opportunity to help educate the public more in these various ways. I love some of the things that you guys have mentioned, introducing new programs and ideas, like there should be a community out compost, you know, because not everyone has one themselves. So I think that's really fantastic.
That's happening. That is in the process of happening in the city of LA.
Okay, that's really great to hear. But just repurposing, I think, you know, with the Buy Nothing group and Etsy and things like that, I think people are already in that space, but I think it's up to us here, if we can, just continue to educate and introduce how people can do that, because maybe some folks don't know how to get started, you know. you know, I also like kind of make like a home deodorizers for, like, for example, the rug. I know a lot of us don't have rugs, so that's something that I started doing like years ago as well, because it bugged me that so many things have, you know, a long list of chemicals, and oh my God, like there's so many natural things that we can use from the earth. So that's why I really adore this group. It's fantastic. And all of these things that you've introduced they're very inspiring. So I just wanted to kind of say thank you for that. And I think all of us just continuing to contribute to that space and help other folks learn and kind of join that movement is really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Mindy, I will let you close it out for us.
I'm going to be really quick because I know you want to move on. So 2 things very quickly. First, Kelley, I know that you said that there's more to the website, and so you were being very kind of specific in your presentation, but I know that someone else mentioned about getting the word out now, because in time to our neighborhood councils, in time before Christmas. So I don't know if there's any way that you could either provide us either like just a few lines or something kind of more specific, as I know we have a newsletter that we're just about to get out that's going out to our membership that's, you know, online. If there was something that we could get out to them that just kind of tells them specifically, you know, a few things that you were talking about. I mean, I could rewrite the things that you said, but if you already have it, you know, ready, and it would save me the time of doing that, that would be great. Maybe you could either give it to Lisa and she could email it to us, or so that's one thing. I don't know if anyone else here has a newsletter going out that they might want to use it as well. And then the second thing is, Chris, I'm totally there with you too. I know that the city's working on trying to get the compost done, but my daughter also lived up north, and every time I was up there, I always thought to myself, why can't we do this in LA? And I tried speaking with sanitation, and I never really got a very good answer. I heard they had a pilot program, but we still are not doing it. So I'm happy to work with anybody else here to try to see if we can get the city to move quicker on that. And that's it.
All right, thank you. The city is doing a lot in terms of compost. They're moving very slowly. You could, maybe we need to have a meeting about that, because I know people are not up to date, but a lot is happening, more slowly than it should, but it is happening. Okay, let us shift gears. Thank you so much, Kelley, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I think this was a really fun conversation, and I hope it inspires people to try to do a little bit more, or maybe I should say a little bit less this year.
Thank you for the invitation. It was wonderful. You all that was a very robust conversation. I appreciate it. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. All right, we are moving on to the LA Zoo. So I think Jerry's here. Yes, I see Jerry, and I know Ji Young is here. So I'm going to hand it over to Ji Young, and then we'll talk about the LA Zoo, and we'll have a vote on the LA Zoo.
Thank you. So I had a talk with Jerry today after I had submitted a community impact statement to my Silver Lake Neighborhood Council Governing Board, and we already passed it and uploaded it to the council file. So basically there is a plan that would cost $650 million at least to redo the zoo in preparation for the Olympics in LA, to make it more like an amusement park and expand it. There is an environmental impact report that was drafted by the zoo folks. And it basically lays out the options, which are currently, as I understand it, either full project with the 650 million plus to expand, or no project, so no changes to the zoo at all, or alternative one, which is some changes to the zoo that do not affect the trees or surrounding trees or wildlife habitat. And alternative 2, which would call for the removal of 200 plus trees, old growth trees, as well as wildlife habitat. The difference between alternative 2 and the full project is that alternative 2 does make some changes with respect to vehicle miles traveled. And so there isn't too much of a difference between alternative 2 and the full project. The zoo folks, okay, so if the no project alternative is the most environmentally, I guess, friendly alternative, then the zoo is forced to talk about which of the other alternatives are the most environmentally friendly. They, in their environmental impact report, they reported that alternative 1 is the environmentally superior alternative between alternative 1 and alternative 2, and the full project. So, you know, at least for the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, we opposed alternative 2. In retrospect, if I had known that the full project is still on the table, I would have explicitly said that we also oppose the full project. But I think the language of our CIS, which opposes the cutting of the trees and the and taking over the wildlife habitat, makes it clear that we're opposed to the full project as well.
Okay, I will, let's move on to Jerry Hans, if that's how I say your name. Jerry
That's
is the
correct.
president. Thank you. And thank you for being here, Jerry. Jerry is the president of Friends of Griffith Park. And I don't even remember how I first heard. Oh, I do remember how I first heard of this issue. It was through CFAC, the Community Forest Advisory Committee. But anyway, I've heard about this from so many people, and I was also given information that was really, really helpful in figuring this out from Jerry's group. So Jerry, I'd love it if you could maybe say any words you want to add, and then maybe field any questions or concerns from the group. And maybe at some point I should show what we have on our website so you can see what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the time being here tonight. And as Jiyoung pointed out, this is a huge project. The 650 million is actually for phases 1 through 3 of 7. And these are layered out over 10, 20 years. And they do indeed want to get some of it done before the Olympics. I'm not sure why, because the Olympics only last for 16 days. There's not a lot of money that can be taken in over 16 days for paying for that type of capital investment. There's an aerial tram, there's a funicular, there's 3 major visitor centers. They plan to host special events, and they're very honest about the special events. They want to increase that to bring in more funds. But what really is the problem for us is when they start talking about their underutilized land, undeveloped, underutilized land of the 133 acres that they have. That's actually part of the Department of Zoo. It's no longer part of Recreation and Parks as of 1997. And the underutilized, underdeveloped land are actually in 2 different areas. One is the Africa planning area, and the other is the California planning area. In the Africa area, there's 7 acres that mostly are comprised of oak woodland. Within that acreage, there's 201 city protected trees. And most of those are coast live oaks, mature, some of them up to 40, 50 inches diameter. The second area is 16 acres, and that's in the California planning area. That's mostly laurel, sumac, scrubland. It does have Nevins barberry, which is federal and state listed. And within that area, there are 26 city protected trees, including oak and toyon. So of the 23 acres, the 16 plus the 7, the EIR is very clear that they would likely have to eliminate or substantially alter that oak woodland and laurel scrubland. And what's really the rub to us is that of that 23 acres, only 35% is actually devoted towards animal care, which should be a priority. And along with the animal care are upgrades to ADA accommodations in order to see the animals being displayed. So we are clearly on board for alternative 1. And as Jiyoung actually indicated, there's only 4 things on the table: the project, no project, 1 and 2. And the assumption normally going into a city approval is that the project's going to get approved unless there's a lot of objection to it. And I think in objecting to the full project, you have to choose one of the alternatives. No project's clearly not a winner. Alternative 1, on the other hand, reduces the growth of the zoo, the projected growth of the zoo. At this point, the project wants to grow from 1.8 visitors per year, admissions per year, to 3.0, that's 67%. Under alternative 1, it would grow to only 47%, which is 2.6 million per year. Under alternative 1, those habitat areas in the Africa and California zones are protected. It's basically the hands-off the habitat option. And also, if you go with the full plan, it says in the EIR that up to 6 acres could be cleared for brush outside of the zoo acreage. So in other words, when they build up to their borders, then that pushes fuel modification into the recreation and parks side of the park. So also, as far as the visitor centers, it reduces the 3 visitor centers to just 2. The California Visitor Center, which would be placed very high up on this, this high terrain, would not be built. They would not blast through that same mountain 60 feet deep to create an artificial path where they would have rock climbing as a featured amenity for visitors. There's a lot of other visitor amenities that too long to mention, but one of them that you would not get with the full project is the California Vineyard. Of course, that's very water consumptive, and also you don't get the vernacular that would transport people up to that high restaurant and event center. Also, you don't necessarily get this huge parking lot to park 2,000 cars. That would either be eliminated or at least reduced under alternative 1.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
If you can just Sorry, were you wrapping up? I'm getting.
Yeah,
concerned
no,
about time to be transparent.
I just say alternative one is the environmentally superior alternative, and actually that's dictated by the EIR that they have to choose the alternative that has the least adverse impacts and the greatest benefits. So that's what alternative one is.
Thank you. And go ahead.
We agree with the EIR.
I should have mentioned earlier that I was connected to Jerry by Brandy Demore of the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council. So I just wanted to publicly thank her for that. Okay, so let me do this right now. I'm going to share our website if I'm able to, and you guys can all go there. It's where the event page where you RSVP'd. Oh gosh, see, and now it's not. Why I hate sharing screens, because I often can't. Okay, I'm gonna do a few things and try to share this with you. But basically what we are proposing, what the advocacy committee is proposing, is that we support alternative one and that we oppose the project. And that's wording that I changed since the committee met because I've learned more. So maybe I should say what I'm proposing is that we say we oppose the project and we oppose alternative two and we support alternative one. So that's what I would like us to vote on shortly. And I welcome any brief, succinct thoughts, questions, concerns about that, or, comments in support. So Pat, go ahead. And I'm going to try to share my screen if I'm able to.
Hi. Really interesting. We're having an issue with a council motion in the Sepulveda Basin regarding underutilized land. And we cannot get the city council person to define it. I just wonder if this is a recurring theme with council people trying to grab space and use it. In any event, I think alternative one here sounds really good. And I'd be glad to talk with Jerry about our underutilized land. Thank you.
Okay, Christine.
Just a very quick question. In regard to the protected trees and the coast live oaks, do these trees not have legal protection? I mean, I thought they were. I thought one could not cut down a coast live oak of a certain size.
I'm sure there's others that are more expertise than I am, but they would require a permit and they do require mitigation. And actually the EIR itself does speak about the mitigation that's afforded to the trees that are lost. One thing that's really interesting is that the oak woodlands actually is mixed with Southern California black walnut. And that plant alliance is actually categorized by California Fish and Wildlife as a rare habitat or a rare tree alliance. And the California Fish and Wildlife actually asks in their comments to the draft EIR why that wasn't declared. There's certainly some interest, in pursuing that question. So
let me go to Joanne, who probably certainly knows more than I do about that.
Yes, there is a rule that I guess an ordinance you would call it, where they have to pay rather hefty fees to remove these, and I suspect that they would get waived for the zoo. They're supposed to replant a woodland 5-to-1, but I doubt that they'll have space to do that sustainably. The protected tree ordinance is kind of a misnomer, because if anybody's willing to pay, they almost always can get the tree removal put through. especially developers. Now that said, this one, when it's more than 2 trees, it has to come before the Board of Public Works. But right now we're under a kind of a weird order of events, which would put this probably at the very end when everything is all, put in place, designs, et cetera. And then it comes to the Board of Public Works, and they're put in the awkward position of saying, well, we really don't want the trees out. I mean, the commissioners never want to take out trees, but they're always being pushed against the wall to do it because everything's in place. And in this case, because there's an EIR, this is the right opportunity to oppose this. So, and there isn't much time because this is going to be up at City Council before we know it. I thought it was at committee on Friday, but I may be wrong. So it's protected tree ordinance is problematic because there's ways around it. It's just they're costly.
Okay, thank you. Gwen, and then if there are no other comments, we will move to a vote, which I will, and I will make a comment before we vote. Go ahead, Gwen.
So the vote right now is for a motion for a letter or a resolution?
No, did you see what I was sharing the screen?
Yes.
So we would be, I mean, we don't need to call it anything fancy. We would be voting to take a position that we support alternative 1 and oppose the project and oppose alternative 2. Does that help?
Thank you.
An alternative 1 is what was called in the EIR, the environmentally superior alternative. Every organization I've come across is taking that position, except, and I should notice, I just found this out today from one of our advocacy committee members, that the Griffith Park Advisory Board supports alternative 2. I read their letter. You can read the link to it in the on the website. I think it's really strange. What else can I say? Jerry, do you want to comment on their position at all?
I'll only say that I think there might be a turning, might be some changes made. And I know that there's some talks going on among the Griffith Park Advisory Board members who, by the way, are appointed by Recreation and Parks. They have members that are very focused on getting cars out of Griffith Park and multimodal transportation and accessing Griffith Park, which is a really good thing. So I think they jumped on that multimodal alternative maybe a little too early before they listened and learned from others.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's go to a vote. It's funny that Kamesh is asking this right now because I did want to talk, because we've, in our conversations about in our ongoing conversations about our bylaws, we've had some conversations that are confusing to me at any rate about abstentions. So I just want to offer right now, I think Muriel, if Muriel can call the roll, but if you want to abstain and you want to tell us that you're abstaining because you don't think you've been given the authority by your neighborhood council to vote, then please just tell us that. And let's see how that goes and how people feel about that. Did that make sense? Just a second. Joanna, do you have a question about that?
No, I just want to make a quick comment after you get through.
Hold on, then that's one thing at a time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Does any comments or, okay, I don't see any. Okay, so let's try that and see how that works and see how people feel about that. Joanne.
Before we vote, I just want to say that the city council adopted the biodiversity report in August, which directs city departments to follow it. And the city legislative analyst changed it to just ask for a report. instead of the directive that was voted. And to take out a wildlife habitat in the hills is a direct violation of the city biodiversity report adoption. And I would urge you to put that in the motion that you know, in the interest of preservation of biodiversity, we need this land to stay natural. And I say this because there may be people, I don't know, the African American community that wants this African planting. I don't know, but right now we are a hotspot, which means that a biodiversity hotspot means that we are endangered, and we need to have as many native plants, native to California, native to Southern California. The Southern California walnut only grows here, only in the Southern California region. So to take out those trees, that means they exist nowhere else. And the California Fish and Wildlife has been very upset at the number of woodlands that have been removed in our area. So I just want to add that in. And if you want to put a sentence about supporting the fact that we're a biodiversity hotspot, that might be important.
Yeah, so let me also say a couple things about, I mean, we might, you know, I think we can make minor tweaks to the statement, and I think that would probably be fine with folks.
I'm truly glad that you mentioned that, Joanne, because that's why I had my hand raised. I was going to ask if the Department of Biodiversity had actually commented on this yet, or have they even been approached?
Well, there is no Department of Biodiversity, so there's that, but
Mosto jury?
I mean, they're in sanitation, but let's not get too sidetracked, folks. We can, if it's something minor like that, I think it's fine to add. We want to keep our statements short and simple so that we are not getting into the weeds and are disagreeing or getting off away from the facts that we are clear on. But for you, when you take this to your neighborhood councils, if you're comfortable embellishing it, and if you think it will still pass with it being, maybe embellish is the wrong word, adding to it, or adding more detail, and you don't think that's a barrier to its passing, then I think that's fantastic. But as we did learn on our advocacy committee, advocacy training last month, you know, short and simple is a way to secure passage. Okay, let's move to a vote, and the vote is simple. We are opposing the project, opposing alternative 1, and supporting, I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? Opposing the project, supporting alternative 1, opposing alternative 2. Okay. As is stated on the website. Muriel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa?
Yes.
I vote yes. Pat Bates?
Yes.
Yes. Lorraine Lundquist? Yes. I didn't get it. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I didn't either.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Joanne?
Yes.
Mindy?
I have to abstain because I still have to, for the very reason Lisa mentioned,
Okay.
I still have to find out the answer from the neighborhood council.
Fair enough. Thank you for saying that.
Very good. Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Christine?
Yes.
Thank you. Dan Kegel?
I too have my lips sealed by the neighborhood council for the moment.
Dan does not. He is not. Dan, you are not a representative for Greater Wilshire. You are.
Oh, that's right. The letter hasn't arrived.
Chair. So you can vote if you like, but you don't have to.
I know you could. Dan?
As far as I know, I'm still considered GWNC-ish, so I abstain.
Okay. Dawn Dwiggins? Dawn? Dawn?
Let's move on.
Okay. Eric Newton?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Ernie Hidalgo?
I don't think he's here.
Yes.
Oh, he is here, sorry.
Yeah. Glenn Bailey?
Pat Bates voted for Scenic.
What about Northridge East?
They're not voting to make the official designation until Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So you want to abstain?
No, just
Let's list him as not a voting member.
Okay. Gwendolyn?
I am a voting member, but Pat Bates is the alternate and she voted for Encino. Okay,
That's
thank you.
Encino, that's right, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Gwendolyn?
Abstaining because of my neighborhood council policy, but I will be bringing it to my committee. I'm making the agenda item right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jiyoung?
Just Ji Young, like young girl. You know, the issue is that my NC didn't vote on whether to support alternative 1. So I feel like I have to abstain, even though we are in favor of, we do oppose alternative 2 and the full project. It's a very minor thing, but I don't feel authorized to vote in favor.
Okay. Kamesh?
Yeah, this is my first meeting from my council, and I was telling Lisa the other day about what will happen. So, by the way, I'm all the way in Dallas here. It's already past 10 o'clock, but anyway, I'm glad I'm going to be part of it. And yeah, because of those reasons, I say abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Miran?
Abstained.
Abstain?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And Rosalind?
Yes, the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council already voted to support alternative 1 and filed a CIS, so absolutely yes.
Okay, that makes 10. 10. And then it's not 17. 10-0-7, I guess.
We can recount later. That's great. Thank you, Muriel. That I know that is hard. A lot of things to keep track of at the same time. Okay, thank you, folks. I'll post this on our, I don't know when, but soon I'll post this on our Submit a CIS website. And I hope you folks all take this to your neighborhood councils. I don't know what the timing is. Jerry, are you still there? Where are you, Jerry?
Yes, I
timing
can.
is for this?
Yeah, I can speak to the timing. We really don't know. It was passed immediately by the Zoo Commission. In fact, they advanced their meeting and passed the full project. It sits at Arts Parks Council Committee right now, and they meet twice a week, second and fourth Tuesdays. They can put it on their agenda on any 72-hour notice. We think there's enough discussion on this that it is going to get pushed out at least, probably January.
Okay.
That's my best guess.
Thank you.
Are there any neighborhood councils that can actually request a 90-day moratorium or a 30-day moratorium on it for people to speak? Or is this just, it's been around for a while and we're really coming up on a long-term deadline? Was this a brief comment period?
Okay, I don't know. Jerry, do you have a very quick answer? Because we are running very low on time and I'm trying to move us along.
There were hardly any comments to the draft EIR. That's when you have the opportunity to comment. Now it's at city approval level. You do have the chance to change the opinion towards adopting the full project. And that's why we need comments going into the council file. And, you know, there's amazing press on it. There's a lot of leverage right now to, you know, to maybe start some discussions and at a minimum, go with alternative one, maybe even beyond that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Jerry, for your time and your expertise and for joining us. And you're welcome to stay and hang out. We're going to talk about the Mulholland Scenic Parkway specific plan next.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give you a brief overview and then we can have a brief discussion and then a brief vote. I'm going to give you a little review that I wrote down because it's very complicated. In 1992, the Mulholland Scenic Parkway specific plan was written or approved or whatever. And there have been many interpretations of it over the years. So the implementation, the execution of it has varied since then. And there have been lawsuits and stuff as far as I gather. And I looked at it very closely the other day and I realized I get it because it says, as many documents do, different things in different points of the document. So, you know, depending on the part of the document you're looking at, you're going to have a different opinion. What up until this spring, for the last many years, and I don't remember how many years, but for several years prior to the spring, the interpretation of it was that, and somebody can correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, from Mulholland Drive, from 500 feet to the left and 500 feet to the right or north or south or whatever, all of that was protected. And by protected, I mean it had to go through, any development needs to go through a design review board, and the proposed project is reviewed by that board. Now, what city planning did this past spring was say, we are reinterpreting it to mean that only things that are visible from Mulholland Drive need to go through that process. You know, people have said that that's an incorrect or illegal interpretation. I don't want us to get into that conversation, especially not tonight. And I don't think it serves us to do that in writing. And we can keep it very simple. There's a council file that I really like that several council members introduced, asking city planning to basically say how this affects, how this interpretation affects the environmentally sensitive areas. So, and that strikes me as a very solid approach to handling this. I hope we agree on this. There are lots of folks who are taking positions on this. I'll share our website again. Sierra Club, CLAW are some of the organizations taking strong taking strong positions in opposition to the interpretation of city planning. And I think most of us do not like the interpretation. And I think the first step is exactly what the council file does, which is to say, hey, and you can read the writing here, ask city planning to report back within 90 days on how the plan is going to help us manage development in environmentally sensitive areas if you don't have the design review board available for those projects. We've added on a couple other things that it's just asking for updates on, which we've also been talking about. I don't want to get into the details on that because we don't have time, but I'm hoping that we can vote for support of this council file. And, you know, as we all know, city planning is getting a lot of pushback on this, and I think we should contribute to the pushback. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Mindy, I think you know a lot about this. Do you want to chime in and add anything to what I was saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much a grab. Nobody was given any kind of notice, including the Mulholland Scenic review. They weren't told that this was going to happen. Bertoni pretty much just made the decision and did it on his own and said, this is my decision, and basically said, this is the way it's going to be, and if you don't like it, you can in essence, he said, you can sue me. And just to give you an example, you know, there are a lot of issues, but take, for example, lighting. If you have issues with night lighting, which affects wildlife, even if it's further out, it doesn't, you know, they were saying that there are a lot of issues that aren't affected. If in terms, it gets very complicated with this 500 feet issue, but light, sound go beyond even if you can't see the house, you know, 500 feet away, something, if there's lighting that affects wildlife from a house that's, you know, at the top, and then it's 500 feet away, or if there's sound, that affects even if it's further away and even if you can't see it. So there are a lot of issues that affect wildlife in the corridor, even if you can't see it, you know, from that area. So, but anyways, but this is what's basically been protecting that very critical area for a long time. And to just like this say, you know, I'm removing it from this protected area was uncalled for, and especially without giving the area any chance to have a say so.
I think that's a great point. I think that's a really critical point, just in terms of process, right?
Yes.
At the very least, it could have been a more inclusive process, and it was not that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Heather, did you want to say something?
Nope, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Any other comments, or should we just go right to a vote? It looks like we're ready. That's fantastic. Muriel, the floor is yours.
Lisa?
Yes.
Yes. I vote yes. Pat?
Yes, this was more like a mugging than a grab.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne?
Sorry, yes.
Oh, thank you. Mindy?
I believe in this case, since we've already, you know, given our point of view, that I'm allowed to, so I would say yes.
Okay. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Christine?
Yes.
Dan?
Abstaining for the same reason and because I am lame and haven't been paying enough attention.
It's okay. Dawn? Eric?
Yes.
Thank you. Ernie?
Yes.
Gwendolyn?
Abstain due to NCSA restrictions.
Fair enough. Ji Young?
Like young, just regular young, G young, as in like young girl, young.
Ji Young.
Yeah, young, like just YOUNG, regular young. So is there some capacity in which I can say, in which I can vote that's outside of my representing?
No, there is not.
Okay,
Sorry.
then I have to abstain.
Okay.
Kamesh?
Just like before, I'm new to the meeting, so
Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Moran?
Abstain.
Okay. Rosalind?
Yes.
Okay. And I know, yes, Joanne, I know I already changed your status. Melanie Winter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Melanie.
Hey.
So 1206.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Muriel. Thank you.
I'll recount again after.
That's fine. Well, I mean, we know it passed. That's what we need for the moment. So that's good. Thank you. Once again, I'll get this up on our webpage soon, and please take this to your neighborhood councils and Yeah, I really like Mindy's point about process, so you might want to add that to your statements. Okay, next I would like us to review the bylaws. I keep thinking we're almost done, and we are closer to being done. We have a couple things on it that the board still has to discuss, but there are some things that we have discussed that we wanted to share with you, and we wanted to share with you the draft. Let me see how I'm going to get to it. This is always harder than it should be. Bear with me. So I'm just going to really go through this quickly. So the highlights that I wanted to make sure that you folks were aware of, and we might not have a lot of time for discussion, but we'll have a little time for discussion and we'll keep going. Okay. The highlighted things are the things I wanted to make sure you were aware of. And some of these are, I mean, some of these might be new and these might not be new. I don't frankly remember. Okay. So the first thing is we have lowered the barrier for entry into the NCSA. We used to have a two-part thing where you say you're joining, like you have a vote to join, and then you vote for, you appoint your representatives. We've simplified that. We've just said when you appoint a representative, that's how you join. I think that's probably more consistent with other alliances, and it's simpler for us and it's simpler for you. The next thing, if you go to this next highlighted section, it says neighborhood councils who no longer have a representative as determined by the council will not be considered members until and unless a new representative is designated. This frankly is for me because we have, you know, and I don't know exactly, and it depends on how you count, but we have maybe 20-ish unengaged neighborhood councils. You know, there's a lot of turnover, people leave, they don't get replaced. Some neighborhood councils just don't, you know, this is not a priority, as we know, for some neighborhood councils. And so we have a lot of, for lack of a better term, dead weight. It creates a lot of administrative extra work for me, and it also misrepresents us. And frankly, there are some neighborhood councils that have taken, you know, that have really taken a turn when they bring in a new board, and they probably don't want to be part of us, and we might not want them to be part of us. So I think this will clean up our list and also compel neighborhood councils who are interested in being involved to appoint active representatives and remove the ones who really aren't interested. So that's that. I'm super excited about that one, I have to admit. Okay, next one. All public policy positions adopted by the NCSA are those of the NCSA alone and will be decided through a vote of the voting body. This was due to, frankly, it was Terry, who's not, I don't think she's here this evening. She had a friend had a death in the family. This was a concern she had, and maybe others of you had too, that this real question of, are you representing your neighborhood council when you are voting here? And the discomfort about whether or not you're authorized to represent your neighborhood council. So at her, well, she talked to her board president, Len Schaefer, who's the president of the Tarzana Neighborhood Council, and he's also on Bonk, and he's been around forever. And he suggested wording to this effect, and I ran this by him and he liked it. He thinks this just clarifies that you are not necessarily representing your neighborhood council. I remain a little conflicted about this, although I'm fine with it. One of our board members, I don't remember if it was Lorraine or Scott or somebody, pointed out that if you look at SCAG or if you look at South Coast AQMD, those are bodies that have representatives of the city and of the county and other entities that have the authority to vote without their entity, the entity that they're representing, having taken a position first. So I just want to throw that out as food for thought. We don't have time to say more, but I'd love your thoughts on that later. Okay, the next piece, I think the gist is, So I'd like to hear what you guys thought about how we managed abstentions this evening. We can talk about that. Also, the board has previously once, I think it was during COVID, I think that might be the only time, taken a position when neighborhood councils could not. At least one board member really doesn't think that the board should ever be able to take a position on its own. So we have this wording saying that in urgent circumstances and only in urgent circumstances can the board take a position for the alliance, and that is only until the circumstances have passed, and then that position is no longer valid or viable. Okay, in red, I am hoping to become the executive director. As most of you know, I act like the executive director. So I've added that, and we'll see how that goes.
Lisa, can you see the Grammarly for Chrome ad? It's taking up a lot of real estate.
Oh, sorry. I can't get to it because let me move just a second. Sorry about that.
I also wanted to take a screenshot of this.
Well, you don't, it's a link. It's linked to on the website. So just go to the website.
With the highlighting for the change?
This is exactly what it looks like on, you all have access to this at your fingertips. Okay, the next thing is, but this is not new. This is something we have discussed. The steering board shall authorize committees every 2 years in alignment with the neighborhood council election cycle. And this last thing I don't want to get into because it's something the board is discussing. It's a kind of a minor detail. It's about how we record our decisions in committees. And I think I've discussed this with all of the committees. Okay, that's it for now. Yeah, you can all of you guys can access that on from our website, from the event page for tonight. There's a link to the bylaws. So we have about 2 minutes to discuss. And what I'm thinking is if there's lots of emotion or energy around something, you guys can just email me or email the board, and we can take feedback that way in the interest of time. Glenn.
GL, not GW, right?
Sorry?
Glenn as in GL rather than GW?
I do not know what that means.
Which one?
Oh, GL as in G, I got it.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, because last time I think, okay. So, so it doesn't do any good to email. And this is regarding the issue of the abstentions.
Okay.
So, neighborhood councils were given the option of whether to count abstentions, not count abstentions, and whether the vote need to require a majority of those voting, or a majority of those present, or a majority of those present and voting. So my underlying concern is, first of all, there's a large number of neighborhood councils that do count abstentions in the overall count, either they don't just ignore them.
Oh.
And my main concern is if for whatever reason people abstain, a lot of people had some very good reasons and various reasons of abstaining tonight. But if the reasons were they weren't sure that this was a good motion or whatever, and that number of abstentions was more than those who voted yes, then that is an indication that the majority of the organization is not comfortable moving ahead with a yes vote. That's my concern. And that did happen several months ago, where a majority of the people voted other than yes. They abstained and they voted no. So this is not theoretical. It really happened. So
Well,
I
okay, let's.
I don't want to argue with. I'm expressing my opinion.
No, I know.
And I'm just saying that I think it's been ignored by the board, and I think it's a very serious issue that you want to have the group, to represent the majority will with confidence when they do vote for something.
Okay, I would like you to remember to presume good intent, Glenn. Just a little reminder of our guidelines, and we will try to wrap up any comments, and you're welcome to, and I have, just for the record for everybody, I have tried to email Glenn about this and we just haven't finished that correspondence, but I have tried, to be frank. Okay, any other, okay, Gwen, GW Gwen.
Well, to Glenn's comment, is there anything in the standing rules or bylines that says for this group, the Alliance, that abstentions are not counted as votes?
Yes, and we say that very explicitly. I maybe, if I didn't read that, I apologize. That's what we say, abstentions are not counted.
And there is no differentiation between an unknowledgeable abstention versus one that is restricted due to policy within the neighborhood council.
That's correct. That's how they stand right now.
Thank you.
Joanne. Joanne, you're muted. Okay.
I have a quick question. Has the steering committee thought at all about opening it up to email votes?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we have. And that's why I changed some language. It used to say Glenn is talking about present and voting. I don't remember how I changed that language. That was actually very difficult for us, but we worked on that as a board so that we can accommodate, as we did in our previous bylaws, email voting. So yes, thank you. Great question. Okay, I'm sure there is more energy and passion on this subject, but we will, we must continue because it's 8:23. Once again, feel free to email me and or the whole board and we can try to navigate it that way. We also have a Slack workspace that everybody is invited to participate in, or we could create a Google group or something if people want to hash this stuff out, but it's hard to get everything done in these meetings. Okay, let's go to committee reports, and I'll try to share that PowerPoint and see if that PowerPoint works, if you guys can see it. Can you see this, or does it not work? It looks weird even to me.
Working.
It is or it isn't?
It is.
Oh, okay. It looks totally wrong on my end, but okay. So as we know, we talked about the zoo expansion, the Mulholland Scenic Parkway specific plan. Those came to the advocacy committee. We are wanting an update on the wildlife pilot study ordinance, working on that. A lot of stuff going on regarding waste. We have the foodware accessories ordinance goes into effect tomorrow for restaurants with 26 or more employees. This is something that the NCSA worked very hard on. And Natalie, are you still here?
I am.
Do you want to say anything about this?
No, go for it.
It is the wrong size.
Anyway, Natalie has
size up. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's up, but it's cut off.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of because it looks very weird for me.
Yeah, the right and the bottom are cut off.
Yeah, something's wrong. I don't know what's up with that.
You could do it that way. That's fine.
Yeah, this is fine. It's not as pretty, but that's okay. So Natalie is one of the people who's been very active with Reusable LA and has been working very hard on outreach regarding the foodware accessories ordinance. So that means for bigger restaurants tomorrow and smaller restaurants, I think in a few months, you should not be offered napkins, straws, condiments, all that extra stuff. We're saying skip the stuff. So that should be starting tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And we are working on a much more with the city very closely and with LA Sanitation very closely on a comprehensive plastic ordinance. So more to come. Okay, Dan.
So the big thing from my point of view is LADWP has been told in no uncertain terms by the city council to at least come up with a plan for getting to 100% zero carbon, I think, energy by 2035. And NCSA has been invited to advise LADWP on this by joining an advisory committee. And they have been feeding us little bits of info about their plan as they go. And detailed scenarios are going to be shown to us this coming week, I think. And then the next thing is they'll show us preliminary detailed plans in February. There's lots of discussion in the advisory group about things like, what is green hydrogen? Do we want green hydrogen? You know, how much local solar do we want? And, you know, why can't we do it all with transmission? And, you know, they'd probably discuss dirigibles if we let ourselves sit there too long. But it's really interesting stuff. And if you are concerned about how DWP is going to be generating energy in the Los Angeles Basin in the next 10 years, come to the Energy Committee on Tuesday.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. All right, Muriel.
We had a rather robust meeting that was like 2 weeks ago, I think. 6 weeks ago? No, I think it was last week.
I don't know, and it doesn't matter.
Oh, sorry. So November 4th, we had a transportation meeting. We had another presentation by Philip Brown regarding the Flow Boulevard, you know, potential collaboration with the LA Cleaner Incubator. We had a brief, we discussed vehicle idling and implementation by the City Council. I'm not sure if we had mentioned this before, but the UCLA Luskin project had accepted our ED project with Cheryl, and she's going to be our point person. And and then for Streets for All, we talked about the CD5 candidate discussion on mobility, and we all agreed that like all of the candidates were very progressive, which was encouraging. There was like a brief cold blocks update. We had one funding, and we're still like looking for more cold block leaders. And we kind of tabled an aerial tramway discussion for next month. So if anyone wants to come, it's the first week of December, the first Thursday of December.
Thank you. And there's a CD13, Streets for All is hosting a CD13 mobility discussion, I think this coming week. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah. Yes.
Trees, Joanne.
It's Tuesday. Go to their website and you can RSVP on the homepage.
Tuesday. Thank you, Dylan. And little secret, Dylan is a candidate.
Okay, trees. I've been posting some really interesting material on our NCSA Trees webpage. Saving Vibrant LA Communities actually grew, I think the Save Water and Save Our Trees, I think it grew out of the Trees Committee because during Save the Drop, we noticed that trees were dying. And I went to the mayor's representative at CFAC and said, you know, the Saving the Drop has killed so many trees. And she said, we'll have to do a revised campaign on Save the Drop and but water your trees. So they did a whole webinar on this. It was really good. And the chat is really good because where some of the people were deviating from natives, which is really what we need for biodiversity, our chat people, and you know, this wasn't the Trees Committee, this is the whole city, were really great in pushing for native trees. So it's a great webinar. You can watch it in bits on our website. And also our October 30th meeting was really amazing on why is it important to pay attention to biodiversity? You know, what is the effect on our health and so forth. And also my slides of private property trees gone. The fact that in LA, people can just cut down their tree on their private property. It turns out that there is an ordinance that says that every front yard is supposed to have a tree, and people are cutting them down. So if we can actually report these to Building and Safety, and I put the ordinance on those slides. So if you go to NCSA website /trees, you will find all these goodies. And if you have any problem finding them, email me at trees@ncsa.la. That's my email. And because of the holidays, we're not going to meet again until January. We meet late in the month. So that's when we'll have another meeting and we'll let you know the topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanne. And that is a perfect segue to a question I had for you. And I should have asked the board this first and I did not. But I'm wondering, our next meeting would be scheduled for December 12th, I believe. I'm just wondering if people think do you want a December meeting or do you not want a December meeting? I don't know what people think. How about thumbs up if you want one and thumbs down if you don't? How about we try that? Okay, we're getting mixed. We're getting about half and half. Okay, we're getting more yeses than nos.
I don't do any work to prepare, so.
Right, that's what I noticed. The people who have to, that is the trend I noticed, Christine. Very interesting.
I think it's good to keep up momentum, even if it's like we try to lighten the load slightly for December, but it's a pretty big gap. So
that's a great. I like Rosalind's way of thinking. We could maybe.
I would also say that the city has a tendency to dump really important stuff in the middle of holidays, during Labor Day, you name it. It's pretty sneaky stuff.
Okay, so. Interesting. I haven't thought about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only announcement I have. So I think we're having a meeting, but I'm not sure what it will be on in December. And I'm open to other announcements. And please do the evaluation. Let me try to put the link back in. Nobody has announcements? I'm sure Glenn has announcements. Glenn, go for it.
Glenn or Gwen?
Call me Gwendolyn.
Glenn, okay. Well, there is a environmental fair that's being held next Saturday, November 20th from 10 to 4 at the Chatsworth Train Depot. So you can actually take public transportation ending up on the Orange Line, and it's right there at the station. And last I heard, there's over 50 exhibitors, a lot of neighborhood council, but a lot of other groups, and co-sponsored with some county supervisor, city council member, and some of the city departments. So it's sponsored by communities. Sorry.
Put a link in the chat, Glenn.
Sorry?
Put a link in the chat if you have one.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Anyway, that's my announcement. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Heather.
Yeah, just was going to quickly mention, we chatted just briefly about Lake Balboa and some of the other neighborhood councils that may not be represented here or may not really be aware. So I am happy to chat offline a little bit more about that and see how I can help and get the word out to some of those other councils. But I've already reached out to Lake Balboa because the chairman for CPAB he's on that board and very into this whole space. So I'm happy to help there.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Okay. I think that's it, you guys. Thank you guys. Please complete the evaluation and I will see you in December, if not before.
I can't raise my hand, but I just wanted to let folks know that there's a vote at the Board of Supervisors to decriminalize bike riding on sidewalks in unincorporated areas of LA County this week. And one of the reasons is because it's legal in LA. It's not safe to ride bikes in parts of on some streets. It's really unsafe. And also the LA Times has been doing a series of articles about how Black and brown folks are very disproportionately stopped for alleged bike riding infractions or violations, and are then like illegally searched and whatnot. So I have included the link to the LA Board of Supervisors action it's a Streets for All action, but other folks are doing it too, but they organized this neat little one. Also the LA Times article.
Thank you. And Melanie, I don't know which campaign. Oh, the 20. I've heard of the 25 by 25, but we haven't done anything on that. We could take that to the transportation committee. If you join, Melanie, then you can raise it.
If
Our
I join the
committee-
transportation committee?
Sorry?
If I join the transportation committee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
Okay, is everybody good? All right, thank you guys. Have a lovely evening. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Lisa. Thanks, everyone.
Why is that doing that? I don't know.
Lisa, can you share, or maybe can we stay on for 30 more seconds so I can get Heather's email?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say, and also so people can save the chat.
Yes, I'm saving the chat right now. I just saved it for myself.
All right.
But
thank you.
Okay, so sorry. You guys are, did you guys, you
Yeah, I just sent. Let me know
okay,
if
so you
got
guys,
that.
okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Boy, that was a long chat. Oh, and I just lost my, resave it. Okay.
Just quickly before we sign off. So I guess because there were two other people from my NC that were voting, so I wasn't able to chime in.
Yeah, I am, that's something we're gonna have to discuss as a board, Heather, because I did not get an email. I mean, I'm pretty good
Right.
at email, so I'm gonna say I did
Yeah.
not get an email saying that you were not a voting member. So I am not comfortable with what happened tonight, but I didn't want to make a
Yeah, I
fight about it.
kind of felt like I was sort of pushed aside, and
I felt that way too, and I tried to I tried to push back, and then I thought, you know what, it's possible that I'm not being consistent.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, just to lighten the load for you, so it's not so we just have really crystal clear clarity, is in our executive meeting for my NC, I'm just going to remind them that they, took a vote on my being a representative, and that you and I had this, really wonderful meeting, and, I want to be able to follow through with that, and not be like an alternate. to the
In
alternate.
fairness, I did tell Glenn that you had not been engaged and that I did want engaged representation, just so you know.
Yes.
I want to be totally transparent. But I'd be, I'd love to, basically anybody who's engaged, I'm happy to have.
Yeah, and I would totally be engaged. It just was like, our conversation, it was a little unclear on, because I was getting all those different Google groups and I wasn't sure which one was. So just to me, I was unfamiliar with how it was structured. So now I am, and I see that it's all one. It's not like different individual groups or other committees that I'm just on an email chain for. So that was unclear. I'm happy to just have that conversation and just make sure it wasn't something that like Pat or Glenn is adamant that no, they need to be the representative, because Glenn was the one that asked me to do this, and then we took a full vote.
And I will say, just so you know, Glenn typically does not, I think I already told you this, but Glenn typically does not shepherd our CISs. So if you would do that, that means everything to me.
So CISs, I'm not very experienced in. Like a lot of those other areas we discussed are, things that, I am involved in that space. I can absolutely have, a lot of contribution and reach out to the other powers to be that I think that you guys are looking for, that you and I had that long conversation about.
Well, another way people do it, and I think we're allowing, I can't remember, but I think we're allowing one primary and up to 2 alternates, I think is what we're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
So there, but another way that I've talked to people about doing it, like if you do have 3 representatives from one neighborhood council and you guys, I don't really know what you have right now. I'm confused by what you're doing right now.
Yeah, it's a
But
little.
let me just
I
finish
think
what I was
there's
gonna
actually
say.
3 suddenly. Yeah.
Let me just say, what you can do is, and I frankly, I can't think of a neighborhood council that's done this well, just so you know, but in theory, it seems to me that you guys can split up tasks. So one person is the CIS person and somebody else is, does something else, because there is enough work to spread it around. And so if you're not strong on CISs, my concern about Encino is that nobody is doing CISs for us in Encino. And I would like one person to do that, but it doesn't have to be all 3. It doesn't even have to be the primary, right? It's however you guys want to set it up among yourselves.
And you are absolutely right there, because it's about having really a platform and a voice here. So the more people that are involved and can think outside the box about how we can, translate that to the community is really important. And there are people that are more technically, inept with, that type of thing with the CIS.
By shepherding CISs, I do not mean submitting. There are probably 5, there are up to 5 people, and Gwen or anybody else correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not on a neighborhood council, so I'm not always up to date on stuff. But typically there are up to 5 people on the board who are authorized to submit a CIS. You don't have to be one of those people, although it would be easier if you were. But as long as you're somebody who's introducing it into a committee or to the executive committee or getting it agendized, and then making sure that it gets submitted.
Yes. So if somebody else writes it up, I'm really good at getting it agendized and following through, and then being like say, for example, speaking in the public comments or whatever it is in those various,
And so what we're trying to do now, we're getting, I mean, this has sort of been part of the push with the change in our bylaws. What I did this time, and this is the first time I've done this actually, is I wrote up those statements and I'll put them on I'll put them on the submit a CIS page, but I've already have something written for you that you can use. And like Ji Young said,
that's great.
She submitted, I mean, she would redo her CIS on the LA Zoo today, but still you can go and you can find what other people have written.
Yeah.
And you typically should never need to start from scratch. You should be able to copy and paste and borrow and borrow and borrow.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in everybody having to start from scratch. If one person has done it well enough, just use it.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to mention something else. Just quickly, I know it's run kind of long tonight, but I just been thinking so much more about this, that really reinforcing that there needs to be a sustainability committee across the board. We have 99 councils, and so I would really like to see you guys kind of utilize my position with the Congress, that I'm in touch with a majority of those councils and I have relationships with their executive committees, and I have good relationships. So I think so many people are on board the way we all feel about sustainability, but just maybe are just unaware, and everybody gets caught up. So
I've emailed every single board member more than once, but I get it.
Yeah.
An email gets easily buried these days. So yes, anything you can do to help.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really how this works. Like I was just telling Gwen at the beginning of the meeting, we got a cool block leader who she doesn't even know because of her work doing outreach, right? So that's what, I see so often is the network. It's just about connecting with people who can connect with people who can connect with people. So yes, anything you can do like that would be fantastic.
And by the way, so I saw Bob Blumenfield the other day, literally like a day ago, and then and Ron Galpern, I think we talked about that too. I mean, how involved they are in that space, especially Ron. So like utilizing, their position, what they're already doing, and their support of this, and those of us that are involved in these various other areas. I think just kind of combining all that to just push out that message a little bit more strongly is something that really works too.
Wait, so sorry, you're saying, I'm sorry, I don't know if I understood the specific suggestion there.
Just, with some of the city council folks that are doing like little mini programs, or some things that we may be doing in various neighborhood councils, like I'm doing a little bit of a PSA campaign. and, things where we can reinforce what the objectives are in sustainability and specific things that you guys are working on by kind of running it through or partnering up in some way to kind of get that louder voice out there.
We do. I mean, I'm going to.
No, I know
press
you do.
conference
You guys
for
are amazing.
Victorian tomorrow.
Totally. And yeah, Victorian is great.
Yeah, I really, really, I mean, I don't agree with everything, but I agree with a lot of what he's saying and doing. I really, really appreciate him.
Yeah. Adrian Nazarian too. He's really big on a lot of sustainability issues.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned him the other day. Thank you for saying that.
Yes. Yeah. His office is really wonderful. And I mean, he's just amazing. We've done a lot of work with him over the years.
So we typically, we really focus on city stuff.
Yeah.
So we don't do as much stuff outside of that, but sometimes the things are so interconnected and we do end up working with state folks. So that's never out of the question.
Yeah. I mean, with the state folks, especially with adapting portions of this Green Deal, some of the things that you and I talked about, really kind of utilizing that to try to elevate it, because it is, huge nationwide. And yeah, it's a little controversial in some spaces, but, the fact that I think it's huge that you guys are working, on that. There's parts of that happening. So shedding more light on that would be huge.
I just realized that the woman from the city, who I think I told you emailed me, has not emailed me back. That sucks. It's hard to get the city's attention sometimes. You have it for a second and then it's like, poof, it's gone.
Yeah. Well, all this COVID stuff, I mean, sometimes it's like easier now because we're all digitally doing, reaching, these platforms. But at the same time, it's like, we're so close to the holidays too, everything shuts down already,
Well, I was saying the opposite of what Gwen's experience is. I feel like the holidays, things slow down, which allows me to catch up. I know Gwen's like, huh?
Well, yes and no. I mean, like last year at this time, I was speaking to the DAs during the holidays because, things were slowed down. We had COVID and,
things were slow last year at this time.
Yeah, people are on their cell phone number. Everything's being routed. And so, I was speaking to these people regularly, like right up until the holiday for the most part.
Yeah, that was a lost winter season.
That whole thing, that was just so, God, literally and figuratively so dark.
Shut down. Yeah.
It was beyond dark. Yeah. And it feels like we're kind of in a little bit of a crossroads again. There's just so much going on. I was so glad to hear that you guys were having that long, extensive conversation about, how to repurpose and, really the impact of all of those containers out. I mean, because it's like such a waste and all the plastic, and those are things that make so many of our heads explode, with the straw. And it's just like, I was so excited to hear you guys talk about all these things. Like there's so much wrapped up in, all the, things that can.
Well, and Ramen passed, I couldn't remember, Gwen, if that was related or not, but Ramen got a pretty cool motion passed through city council about the port. Was that related to the stuff you were talking about?
Well, there's several things that have come through. Now that the federal funding that just came through.
No, I'm talking about, she did something. I don't remember if it was moving the ships further out or doing something to expedite.
Yeah, I think it's the ships moving it further out. There's been a few things. There's been a lot of movement that's been collaborative on the state, federal, and city level. So, and the port has its own autonomy and creates its own regulations as well. There's a lot of stuff happening. And of course, they're going zero emission. There's tons of things that are all happening at once. Yeah. And this funding that's happened is actually going to help with these goals of international port container movement. So Los Angeles is literally the guinea pig for the world to go zero emission. And I can't even tell you the enormity of supply chain. It isn't just that. I mean, things are ordered and scheduled 2 years in advance. Everything from corporations, it's just a massive thing. And when you really understand the enormity of it, I'm going to reinforce that word, the enormity of it.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. And honestly, I'm sure you've already heard it. It's been repeated quite often in the media, but the port workers out here are working, have done more volume during this time than they ever have before. Records
Yeah.
are being blown away. And what it really gets down to, and what you were talking about, Heather, about the mind blowingness about all of this waste, international shipping is off the charts because you and I and everybody else has been buying stuff online and it's coming straight from overseas. So even though there's supply chain limitations and everything, we are guilty of creating those hundreds of ships out there as well.
Yes, it's true. And for kind of shortchanging the small businesses, because everyone's doing what is convenient and forgetting that you don't have to buy through Amazon. You can go directly to the website of what you wanted to order. You can find it on Amazon just to do your research because it's easy to find. But then rather than because it takes a huge cut out of those businesses. So if you go directly to them, then you're not paying Bezos and giving him like that huge fraction.
Well, to another point that you just said about bringing together the unity of 99 councils. So many hands make short work. The reason I was really enthusiastic about this meeting is because I already had agreed with Christina Smith, who actually works on a lot of websites for a lot of neighborhood councils all through.
She's the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council webmaster.
Right.
Oh,
You and I talked about that already.
She and I just talked before this meeting. I'm going to try to create an e-newsletter with a lot of these aspects. It's not just going to be, I mean, everything from a reminder to compost your trees, because still the vast majority are not composted.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that. Like, offline, continue to chat or via the email chain. But it's so important to hit all those newsletters. So like with the Congress and when we were trying to get certain messages out, I reached all the different alliances, all the different neighborhood councils. And I was like, look, each of you have a newsletter. Can we get this, copy in there? It's important. So this is perfect what you're talking about, because it readdresses and gets that out for people to see.
Well, and I love this because this is really the point, right? It's not like so that 35 of us are hanging out shooting the shit and talking about what we're going to give our parents for Christmas. It's about how do we,
get
this
message
information and inspiration.
out.
Yes.
Feed it.
Yeah.
Get it out there.
And remind people, because some people just don't even know where to start. So a little bit of it is education and reinforcement.
Well, this is the most important part, Lisa, and I'm hoping that maybe we can talk about this, but for the first time, because once again, this is a blessing because of COVID, Anne Marie Holman, you know who she is? Okay.
I do, yeah.
You know about Canva, right? That was being used for elections?
I do, yeah.
I use Canva.
I use it. I do too. Well, what they finally did is the last election, they shut down the license and they got rid of it. And I said, I don't know why you're shutting down the license. This tool is so important for unified messaging. Everything that was created for the elections in past years should be built upon, and there should be a reservoir. And each neighborhood council should be able to borrow from the other neighborhood councils great campaigns. And actually, I said that Anne, if somebody does something that's a message for a Department of Sanitation thing, and it's a good base for it, no, you don't have to put a team member in your department to create this messaging. It's already built. Use it as a template and expand on it. And then all of the neighborhood councils that do not have the creative capacity or the time, you create that basic template, they can plug in their message and then off.
Right, absolutely.
So
It's
it's not known right now that everybody has
not.
access.
Right.
And I
Well-
think it's essential that, Lisa, if you can talk to Anne Marie Holman, because each neighborhood council has their own username and password, and it is
Yeah.
now encouraged. They really want everybody to use it. They're paying for the license. Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Well, wait. I'm
Well-
not sure if I'm following. What would you want me to say to Anne Marie?
The Sustainability Alliance, each of the Alliance committee chairs should know about our Canva accounts, because it's a resource tool that the city could actually dispense templates that each of sustainability can, and we can build our own. So if we have a message about a sustainability thing, the Canva, you can format it to Twitter, to Instagram and Facebook and Nextdoor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any committee chairs who are, well, maybe Muriel. Muriel has said she's going to help with social media, but I mean,
well, what I'm saying is
not
that
Dan isn't going to start using Canva, I don't think.
Well, what I was going to just mention real quick, because with the Congress, we were using Canva and, linking everything together. And, like I had a very particular marketing plan that, really I wanted to make sure that we utilize certain things that weren't really being done that should have been utilized with the Congress in previous years. So same thing with the neighborhood councils. And I was just going to mention, because you have a great point here, that I had talked to Adrian and Paul Krikorian about this many, many years ago. And I said, what I don't understand with all the neighborhood councils, everybody kind of does their thing for their council, but the councils are not kind of communicating across the board. In some ways they are, but for community events, for outreach, for all the things that like folks want to just support and work together, very similar to what you're saying, there should be a template. There should be something across the board that everyone could utilize, because all the 99 councils, essentially we're trying to put that same message out. So we should be able to share.
A lot of that is already happening.
hours.
That's a lot of that is already happening. There are probably there's just a small handful, it seems to me. I don't know. Webmasters for all the neighborhood councils.
Yeah.
So that means that Christina's
place where
doing
everything's available.
Well, and that's why
I don't know.
That's why I'm going to invest a ridiculous amount of man hours creating a newsletter, and I'm going to be using Canva to create compelling graphics that each one can be distributed on Facebook. And
absolutely.
And you feed one message at a time, but it's all going to be there.
Yeah, it's got to be built up.
Email letter. She already said, well, if you do this, I want to share it with Coastal, and I want to share it with this, and I want to share it with that. And I'm like, go, yeah, that's
because
what it's
because then it's easier, for like my media colleagues and stuff like that. Like if there's a link, if there's some place to find this stuff, and then it's like just a matter of grabbing a couple, quick mentions, sound bites, whatever it is, to then push that out there.
Thank you.
And that's important. It's
now,
really important.
and it can be customized. Canva is the tool.
Totally.
Canva is a tool. For example, if I created a message for the tree recycling that Department of Sanitation, and it's a list of the locations, and it's within my area, then somebody just comes in, wipes that out, and puts in the locations in their area, and then they format it for Instagram, and Facebook and Instagram are automatically done. If it needs a Twitter reformat, I'll have that template already reformatted.
There's a way to link it all. Yeah, there's another platform that's free that links all of those social media. I think even there was one for LinkedIn too. But I mean, that stuff is important. I mean, LinkedIn, I know that's kind of taken away from us in the LA area, but there are some really interesting platforms that tie them all together. So it just, that message can just keep going out.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, with the election, for example, and going back to that, the first time the city clerk started testing, doing elections with the neighborhood councils, I saw a couple of really good campaigns happen in some of I forget where it was, somewhere in the valley, North Valley. So I was really interested in what was starting to happen with YouTube and everything like that. There was a lot of, you could see the candidate forums on YouTube and stuff, and
Right.
that was happening. And I was thinking, okay, the city clerk is going to be unifying this. So some of these practices are going to be built upon, so that when it's time for all 99 councils to be plopped into this, they'll have already kind of tested some things and built upon that. No, they hire a team to do the elections, and then they are let go. It's on a contract and they're let go. They don't continue to build on their experience. They don't create the templates.
There's no templates, there's no history or something for people to draw from in the future. Same thing with the Congress. We were like, okay, everything from the past is gone.
It's
so
horrific.
We had to set something up so the future Congresses would have, material to go back to and utilize, and the marketing plan, and everything. They would not have to start from scratch like we had to. Somebody locked the passwords. Like there was all sorts of stuff from the history, and it shouldn't be like that. It should just be where everyone's working together and we're continuing to grow.
Thank you. Exactly. And Canva is a tool. I've talked extensively with Anne Marie about this, that it needs to be a resource with templates, and and all you do is you go
plug it in,
ask, search, you see some creative stuff that people have done, you pull from that, and then you draw off of it.
Okay, you guys, I think I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I think you guys can stay on if you want. I might inadvertently end the meeting, but I will try not to. But Greg, I don't know if you're there, but thank you for joining. And Charlene, I don't know if you're still there, but thank you for, oh, you are there. Hi, Charlene.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I listen in because there's so much to learn. And so I'm just listening in. I'm from Zapata King in South LA. Just to say hi. I would have my picture on here. I'll try to do it one day. I messed it up. Okay, so I don't know how to.
Don't worry about looking scruffy.
I'm
unwashed. I am.
And P.S. I was so happy to hear you guys, talk about the inequities and how that fits into all of this, because, people not having access to certain things, sustainability, food. There's the food. I mean, that we can go on and on and on about that, but that's, a huge problem.
Well,
that
with
we should discuss more. Yeah.
With that, I have a whole list of things for food security. Let me show you what's on my agenda for discussion for this outreach thing. I'll just plug it right in here.
Well, I can't wait to talk to you more about that, because that's something I talked to another city member about only days ago in a meeting. And, it's something that should not be forgotten, and it needs to be addressed. We did that with the restaurants in the beginning of COVID. Remember, like restaurants were trying to think outside the box. What can we do? We're not functioning. We're not, besides like, delivery or whatever. They utilized the produce that they had on stock, and they put packages together, and it's just really fabulous. And I think we shouldn't forget that. And I don't want them to forget that. Like I really like, I keep saying, okay, I want to do this program, that program, but it's hard because it's like, of course, we all have to work as a team, because you can have all these ideas and they need to be executed. But the fact that there were great things happening, that people were thinking outside the box, and even though things are starting to get back now, we should still be doing these things to reach out to folks in need and just remind everyone that there are resources there. So that is critical.
For example, I mean, with that in mind, I have as a point, food security, reduce food waste. There's a pet food pantry.
Yes, I know it very well. I'm in that space too. That's very, very critical, but they haven't been utilizing it. So I had, before Brenda Barnett stepped down, I had a 2-hour Zoom meeting with her, and I was like, really like, listen, that needs to be opened up for people. Like, you are collecting, you are taking your salary of $325 a year, 325,000, and the pantry is not available to people. People are donating to that because that's what it's supposed to be, needs to be open. So yeah, that's a whole nother thing, because there are people that, you know, are struggling to, you know, be able to care for their animals. And yeah, there's so much work to be done.
Exactly. And with that, you know, emergency call lines, the mental health during the holidays, abuse
Completely,
hotline,
yes.
no DUIs,
Yeah.
you know, either you get a designated driver, a reminder of that, or find
Yeah.
you know, contacts for alternative driving.
Right, and promote, because there's companies that offer the free rides, well-known companies, the cabs during the holidays. That's another thing, reminding and putting that, you know, promotional information out there, because people don't always know.
But what's even worse is that you always hear somewhere in Los Angeles that family has lost their life. They actually, you know, carbon monoxide poisoning because they tried to heat themselves with something that they shouldn't have inside, or there's a